Hi, and congratulations on completing week 3, Land as Promise. And this week, we really were trying to explore what is the gift of the land that was given to Abraham and then to the Israelites, his descendants, and how is that to be understood in the New Testament. So the land is a central theme throughout the entire Old Testament. But we need to understand, what does that mean? Is the land really an expression of the Garden of Eden throughout the book? Or is it an expression of the physical boundaries of Israel into Syria that are given to the Israelites and therefore continuing today? How are we as modern day Christians to understand this gift of land? So our goals were to describe the theological meaning of God's promise of land to Abraham, to evaluate different views from the intention of the purpose of the land in the biblical text, and then to articulate the unity of the Pentateuch, the Old Testament, and the New Testament around the theme and theology of land. So in assignment 3.1, you were to write a 4-page extensive paper comparing the theses presented by Alexander, Kaiser, and Miller concerning the theme of land. With which view do you agree and why? Now, many of the papers did a really nice job outlining the arguments of Alexander, Kaiser, and Miller, and that's a great undergraduate paper. However, this second part, with which view do you agree and why, is more of the master's level work that I'm looking for. So how do you dive in to the essence of each of these 3 scholars, and then how might you include outside research to create an argument for yourself on what you believe the land meant in the Old Testament and what it means to us today as New Testament believers. And I thought that second part of the paper was a little lacking on many, leading to a downgrade to a high B instead of a low A on the paper. Now, that's not bad, but I think it's time that we start to really dive into the meat and try to look for the essence. And here, as we look at Alexander argues for a more literal understanding of the land. It is a gift given to the Israelites through Abraham, and while it means and is understood as a replacement to the Garden of Eden, that landedness that we have, the Israelites have a land where God will meet them when they are doing the things they're supposed to. So while the covenant of the land, or the Abrahamic covenant, is eternal, the land portion of that covenant is only available to the Israelites when they are following God's will. So we see during the time of David and then into the time of Solomon that they are, if not all, most of that land has been given. And then as the Israelites begin to move away from God and are challenged by the prophets, we see that they lose the land, are placed into exile, and then are continually seeking the land again. And that's more of the Alexander argument as we move. And he sees it literally into the New Testament as well, although that's not entirely true, but mostly true. Miller, however, sees the land as more of a figurative idea, that in fact the idea of land is the Garden of Eden, and then God translates that figuratively as to Abraham, this is the place that I will meet you, this will be your new Garden of Eden. And then as we move into the New Testament, he argues that just like the Abrahamic promise is translated from the pure Israelites to all people, in the same way, the idea of land is translated from the physical boundaries of Israel to the spiritual boundaries of the modern church. And he culminates that in Revelation 21, where he says, here is the new Jerusalem, the new Israel, the new earth coming down from heaven. And therefore, if it is a new Jerusalem, then clearly this must be spiritualized because the current Jerusalem is not what God was talking about in the promise, but to be fulfilled in Revelation 21, we have a new heaven and a new earth that is the spiritual Garden of Eden, if you were, the perfect land that is being given to God's people. And so all of that is where I'm trying to have you go. And the core of the argument is it a literal understanding of land, or is it a figurative understanding of land? And do you stand more in the Alexander Kaiser camp or in the Miller camp through your own personal research? So that's what I was looking for out of the paper. Then on our discussion post, which was similar, based upon the reading and your personal reflection, what is the purpose of God's giving the land to Abraham and his descendants? So I was hoping that the discussion post would allow you a chance to kind of work through your arguments, work through your thoughts, so that as you write the paper, you've had the input of the class. And I felt like this week there was some discussion, but we really could have done more, and we could have really dived in or dug deeper into some of these arguments, bringing in some outside research, as well as more of an understanding of our authors. That's not to say this week's discussion was bad, but I think we missed a little bit of an opportunity, and I challenge you in week 4 to really dive into these discussion posts, because the discussion post is due on Friday, your papers are due on Monday, and my goal in designing the course is that the discussion will allow you an opportunity to format the conclusions of your paper in such a way as the entire class can engage with you as you do your research. So with the discussion, what is the purpose of God's giving the land to Abraham and his descendants? How is this promise used or viewed theologically in light of the New Testament? Looking at, is it literal or is it figurative, meaning that the promise is applied to the landed community of God or the modern church. Be sure to support your argument with academic references from 2 commentaries and 2 peer-reviewed journal articles. And I did mark off if I didn't see that kind of depth of engagement in your discussion and in your post. So feel free to call me with any questions or email me with any questions. I am around this week, no major travels. And again, I hope you had a great Easter and are refreshed and ready to move into the second half of the course. Have a great day.